what we see is, as you know, we are telling many times that this is the perfect storm, where is the combination of 12 years of conflict, a serious financial crisis in the country, inflation going up significantly, prices of basic food is extremely high, where the winter conditions are very harsh, and lastly, when the earthquake is destroying many buildings in the four cities. That, while in the case of Turkey, what we see is that the affected area is severely affected, with a population that also includes refugees. The winter is also extremely bad, where the structural damage is very, very important, and where the relief efforts require right now a higher level of concentration on saving lives. And the two contexts are different itself, so that demands from organizations like ours, first of all, to see how is our local capacities with the Red Crescent societies of Syria Arab Red Crescent Society and Turkish Red Crescent Society in the field. As of today, more than 5,000 staff and volunteers have been deployed to all the affected areas. And here again, it's important to differentiate those focal areas where in urban settings where more goods and resources are available, from those that are in rural areas and those that are in hardest to reach areas. So our operations is trying to look into all those dimensions, and we have of course a combined level of group of teams in different sectors to address the key humanitarian actions that we will need to concentrate in this period of time.
Thank you so much. You already spoke on the differences between the crisis in Syria and Turkey, but I was just curious about you specifically, like what actually are you calling, for example, are you all the time on calls, talking to your teams in Turkey and separately in Syria, or are you more like trying to manage, for example, other international partners? Just for someone who unfortunately has not too much of an idea what's going on in your office, I would be curious to know what you're actually focusing on, if you don't mind sharing.
No, with pleasure. Let me highlight a few points. The first one, of course, our role is coordination, ensuring proper strategic and operational coordination. And I will put you a few examples. In question of few hours, we have to make a decision in terms of allocating financial resources. So in a period of 6 hours, we took the decision to activate the Disaster Response Emergency Fund to allocate 3 million Swiss francs to ensure that the operations start working. So this is the first element, to say with basic information how we can guarantee the team goes and are able to start operating, supporting the national societies. At the same time, it means a lot of coordination work at the same time in two countries with the two national societies and our operation teams that are in the two countries as well. So that represents another amount of time and efforts that we are putting in place. Then we have to coordinate with the entire network of the Red Cross Red Crescent Society. Just to highlight, we are a network of 192 national societies, and we have over 55 of those national societies who are contributing either bilaterally, sending teams to support the two sister national societies, or multilateral coordinating with us. But in our role is to ensure that all the level of coordination to guarantee that efficiency and no duplication is in place is part of our activities to guarantee that the operations flow in a way that are effective and efficient and accountable. The other one is to guarantee that what will be the emergency appeal that we will ask for the two countries. So that requires a lot of level, again, of engagement at the national level with the respective authorities, and the international level with different partners and ourselves, in order to define, based on the needs that we know now, to define what will be the right focus of the approach, in which sectors is going to be the approach, what is different of the needs in Syria and compared with Turkey. And we came out with an emergency appeal of 200 million Swiss francs. 120 million goes to Turkey and 80 million Swiss francs for Syria. But again, this represents an example that all the gathering information was needed, coordination, engagement with different sectoral areas, be health, shelter, water and sanitation, psychological support, relief, logistics, etc., in order to guarantee that we are connected in a way that allow us to provide the right approach. Mm-hmm. The other element of coordination is with external actors, with the UN, with the governments, in order to illustrate what are we doing, where are concentrating our actions. And finally, and not the last, but the coordination with the media, where we have the opportunity to share our focus attention, our areas of work, and our main concerns in this operation. Mm-hmm. I hope that that illustrates a little bit what has been the past 48 hours.
It does. It sounds definitely very complex, and I admire all this coordination you are doing, because there are so many subgroups, and I bet it requires a big amount of concentration and focus. You already touched upon the appeal of 200 million Swiss francs. How confident are you that you can get this all? And is it, did I understand it well, that it's going to be for the whole sort of reconstruction of your needs at the moment to sort of recover? I'm not sure for how long period of time do you think this 200 million can be used for?
Yeah, no, good question. Let me go for the easy one. The 200 million we are projecting for a 12 months period of time that will address the saving lives phase, the second phase, which is related to ensure livelihood recovery, and that can help the communities to have the shelter, the conditions to live in the basic conditions. And the third part will be the initial rehabilitation of basic public infrastructure, like water, to guarantee proper water and sanitation, or basic infrastructure for primary healthcare services, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. That is the direction in terms of shelter, in terms of distributing non-food items and food items as well. Now, to your question, which is the most difficult one, how positive we are in terms that we will be able to obtain the financial resources, that will depend very much on the solidarity from the public, the support from government authorities that can allocate financial resources to the IFRC appeal. It will depend also on the solidarity of the private sector that will be willing to provide support to the IFRC appeal. But I have to mention that this is the first emergency appeal, and we have not yet finalized the needs assessment. Mm-hmm. While we are discussing right now, and in the coming days, we have a team that is looking into the needs and to define if 200 million is good enough, or if we will need to even increase the amount of financial resources. What is important also for important to highlight is that when we talk that it is a massive destruction, it is not a solution that is going to be fixed in 6 months or in 1 year. this has to have a long term, because the rehabilitation and the reconstruction takes a significant amount of time. And in one country, it will be even more complicated, which is in Syria, due to the level of vulnerability that exists, compared with hopefully Turkey probably will go a little bit faster. But in the assessment process, we will need to see those. We always talk about buildings, houses, of health centers, education centers that have been damaged or destroyed. But later on, it has to be a more technical assessment to say, is that property habitable or not? It is possible to have individuals living there, or going to the hospital, or going to the school, etc., if the structure is capable to continue being operational or not. And that requires in-depth structural analysis as well. So this is going to take several months to finalize, and will give a clear determination of what will be the path of the challenge ahead.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You touched upon so many interesting points. It's really hard for me to choose one, but I would love to definitely know what you think. You said that in terms of Syria, there is a little bit harder to deal with it, given that the people are already in dire situation now. Could you share your thoughts on, for example, the sanctions at the moment? Are there anyhow obstructing your work there? Do you see any sort of like challenges given that they are in place, or is it fine and sort of fine, and you don't notice it in your work?
Well, that's a very good question on sanctions. Look, sanctions always have unintended humanitarian consequences. And I'm using the word unintended humanitarian consequences because that is the reality. It is not any sanction. It is not trying to affect the basic humanitarian services. But when there are sanctions, and I will put you an example. Let's put Syria right now. Fuel. To access to fuel, it is more difficult, and it takes more time. It costs more. It is required to have different service providers from outside the country to enter to the fuel to the country. When we talk about equipment, it takes more time. When we are talking about financial resources, banking, you can have banks or solutions that probably will be ready to facilitate, but sometimes the fear of the chain around the banking system puts different additional conditions that the sanctions do not require. And that increases the level of time that we have to dedicate in order to negotiate, to clarify, to ensure that this is not what the sanction is referring. Many times we have sanctions exemptions, but not necessarily the banking system understand that. And part of our work is to constantly address in the different sectors how to facilitate the humanitarian work. So sanctions do have these unintended consequences. And if I summarize, increases the prices of everything that we do, takes more time to deliver the humanitarian services. It requires sometimes private suppliers that could increase again the cost. And there is this level of fear to facilitate in sometimes the existing procedures around sanctions. So that is how I could describe, and this could happen in many occasions when we are dealing with humanitarian operations in context where sanctions are being implemented.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like because some companies, I suppose, are fearful even to, they are not sure whether, for example, this could be under sanction or not, so they rather avoid it. It sounds like you need almost a group of lawyers or some technical experts sort of telling the companies, how they can actually go through it and that it's okay in some cases. I don't know if I'm correct, but from what you're saying, I imagine some group of people doing that. And
well, you are very correct. We would like to have the luxury to have a group of lawyers, but we do have a lawyer that dedicates only for that work. But also we have members of our team that is in the logistic area and the supply chain area that have the connection. So we are trying to team approach to address the different cases of sanctions.
Thank you. Just one last question on this aid going to Syria, if I may. Do you use mostly the cross line, or do you use also the cross border through Bab al-Hava? There is a lot of talk around it. How efficient is each of them? I don't know, for your organization, which of them do you find as the most useful sort of for your help?
Yeah, no, look, normally our operations are fully managed by us in coordination with the national society in the country. So our point of entry is always the national society of the country, and how the national society of the country guide elements in terms of what is the best entry point. We never, on most of the occasions, we don't try to go from a different way of coordinating. I think that is crucial in many occasions, that the domestic capacities or the national societies in country that have the contacts, both at national level as at local level, can better guide the international work that we are doing in order to guarantee where is the safest way to go, where is the most efficient and effective way to go. And of course, we do our own analysis, and whenever we have discrepancies, we have a discussion with the National Red Cross or Red Crescent Society in any given country.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I suppose it goes through the capital since there is your society. If you can't share, no problem at all. I don't want to go to something which is confidential. I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, that's how we operate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You also, if I can get back to the flash appeal, you said you are still calculating. Is there any coordination on the flash appeal with, for example, with the UN, with the ICRC, with other organizations? Is there any coordination on that? And then secondly, you said also private sector. What kind of private sector? Is it mainly banking or, foundations? Just to have a rough idea who is going to pay for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first point in terms of the coordination, we have different platforms of coordination and information sharing, right? On what we are doing, how we are doing. And of course, in those platforms of information, we indicate what is our focus of attention and how much we are going to ask for an emergency appeal. So with the UN, we have a platform of coordination. With ICRC, we have a platform of coordination. But these platforms also respect the mandates of each institution, respects the independence of the work of each institution. And in our case, our main coordination happened with the national societies of the affected countries. So when we defined the amount of money, of course, we inform to the UN system, to the government authorities, to the ICRC. And normally with ICRC, that is part of the family, what we are trying to do in many occasions is we try to co-coordinate in the allocation of financial resources in order to know what they are going to do, what we are going to do, how much they are going to ask. But we have two different modalities. The other point that is important to define, look, in our case, in the case of the International Federation, in 24 hours, we took the decision of the first funds that which we call disaster response emergency funds, and in 36 hours, we already decided on the emergency appeals. Other organizations take a little bit longer than us. The difference is, as I said, that we have their own national domestic Red Cross, Red Crescent Society, in this case, Red Crescent Societies, that allow us to move a little bit faster because we have a presence there, they are there, they have the connection with the different local level, and that gives us first-hand information that allow us to make quicker decisions.
And if you may, on the private sector,
on the private sector, look, in this case, I would say two things. One, normally we have individual donors that see the emergency appeals and they donate. And a great proportion of many of our international operations come from individual donors. Many individual donors go through Red Cross Society, as in the case of Russia, can go through the Russia Red Cross, and the Russia Red Cross will send to the International Federation. Or some national societies decided to go bilateral as well with the financial resources. Private companies, we always respect the national society relation with the private companies. So our primary way of working is if a private company of a particular country is interested to donate, we will say first, verify if the national society in the country is willing to receive that national society or the money will come to us. When we have companies that are, let's say, more in more than one country, right? Then we don't approach directly, but we have mechanisms of coordination with them, and they will provide financial resources to us based on the appeals.
Thank you. You also touched upon that you have platforms in terms of managing with the UN and other partners, you know, since we are also deeply covering the UN. Could you say some word, how are you in general managing your actions with the UN? Is there like, how often do you call each other if you can, a part of the Fletch appeal?
Yeah, no, this within the humanitarian system, and I think it's important to differentiate the UN because the UN is too big in different fronts, right? When we talk purely humanitarian, we have again a regular platform of coordination. The IFRC is an observer in all those platforms because we not necessarily adhere for any of the decision that the UN can take. So we are observers, we give our opinion in certain things, but we not necessarily agree on decisions that they can take as a UN. So we preserve our independence, our neutrality, and impartiality in the way we work. But of course, we have a forum of coordination where we express what is our humanitarian point of view on any particular situation. So there is a humanitarian platform that is effective the entire year for different events, and there are other platforms that are related to technical areas of development, where in the same we are influencing the humanitarian agenda in terms of what needs to be seen there, but we are not an organization that approves or agrees necessarily in few decisions. Then we have other platforms of coordination with the UN that are related to issues of development or in our case, community resilience, or in New York, where we have our presence as well in the security council, yeah, where we have our position and we present our position, and again we are observers in many of those platforms. So that's how we coordinate with the UN. And many occasions with the UN, we have a common focus interest on areas, but we can have different approaches on how we address and work in those areas.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There are so many questions.
Yeah, Lenka, sorry to interrupt. I have to bring our Under-Secretary-General also to another live interview.
I know. Okay.
So sorry for this.
No. You told me. So is it how much time we have? Like 5 minutes more, or?
I would say like 2 minutes more, because I have to run to another interview.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, then has to be the most important question, I guess. And we wonder, what are your estimates for how many more victims there are going to be? And do you think there are many people still, for example, under the fallen pieces of the buildings? And what do you think of this liquidation? Because I think it's the most terrible about this all, and it's probably what everyone would like to know. Thank you.
Yeah, no, in this situation, I would say it is very difficult to predict. Reality is that in many earthquakes, there will be, if you don't have the capacity to bring the specialized equipment on time, the possibilities for significant number of people under rubble is going to be really big. Bear in mind that the earthquake happened in an hour that most of the people is sleeping. And again, we see a major challenge in those contexts where you don't have search and rescue teams with equipment that is needed and with the necessary machinery that is required. So here in Syria, my view is that probably we will end having a significant more number of people under rubble than in Turkey. But numbers will tell us there will be a moment in time that we will talk about missing people, because there will not be guarantee what happened with them. So many operations that have been related to earthquakes, and when I'm describing you the difference in terms of having the equipment and the machinery and not having, it represents numbers can change significantly.
Well, thank you so much, Under-Secretary-General. It's really a pleasure for us, and we are very grateful that you told us your opinion, because you're on the spot. So that's really an honorable work. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you.
Thank you. Good
Take
luck.
care.
You too.
Thank you very much.